Motorhop on Air.
This was the benchmark we set at the beginning of us starting the podcast.
8 weeks ago.
Well, whatever the time frame ended up, but it's episode 8.
8 is great.
Yeah. Episode 8, we're recording October 11th, 2023 at 11 p.m. right on time. Killing it.
Even later than normal.
Even later than normal.
And I'm dressed even fuzzier and warmer than normal.
Yes, she is. She's wearing like a fuzzy fleece koala robe thing. It's ridiculous to be sitting across from.
So you definitely bought it for me pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And I'm just now thinking about how dusty it probably is from sitting in the closet.
No, you wore it not...
I know, sure, but I haven't washed it.
Well, fair. But
So I'm a
it's just
dusty
little dust.
koala.
It's fine.
It's fine.
They probably give themselves dust baths anyways. It's more
probably
authentic.
True. It's probably on the hood.
Yeah.
It's fine. But I'm really glad I found it before Halloween because now I have like an easy costume cop out and I'm about to be the coziest koala you've ever seen.
There you go.
This is your quality time with me.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Well,
So why are we late? What were you doing?
trying to do entirely too much on my day off.
That's par for the course.
Par for the course, right? So a quick cleanup and also then like a more thorough organization effort in the garage, all focused around getting to the point that I could rebuild some air shocks.
On which bike?
The Sportster. Before we get there, though, I want to take a brief pit stop to what's in your cup, because mine was interesting.
Yeah, I think I threw up in my mouth a little when you told me what was in yours, but I have the emotional support water bottle.
Stanley cup. Yep.
Yeah.
Emotional support Stanley
cup. I don't really
cup.
want to be a Stanley girl. I didn't even buy this one. It was given to me.
Well, you also were into Stanley.
I don't want to be the
kind of
basic
like 2
white
years
girl.
ahead of time.
It's true. I'm really a trendsetter, and if you looked at me or if you heard me talk, you wouldn't believe it either. It's part of the essence. But in my other cup, I was digging around our cupboard and found a little bit of gin and said, hey, I don't even know if I like that. So...
Have you tried it yet?
I have. It's actually really good. So
Okay.
I put like one part gin and then 2 parts of this
I'm going to try it.
grapefruit tonic water that I think I've mentioned before. I'm like obsessed with it because it's like light.
Oh, that's good.
It does have like actual grapefruit juice in it. Like there's no weird, I don't know, like just random unnecessary things. It's literally carbonated water,
Yeah.
grapefruit juice. It's delicious. And so tell the adoring fans what concoction
So
you've made. Elixir?
I thought
What
to
is
myself,
this thing?
originally I was just going to grab a beer. And then I was
In
like,
fact, you grabbed 2, and I was like, oh.
well, I might run out of one. Who knows how long this episode's going to be. It is episode 8 after all.
It's true.
So I was like, I'm sure there has to be some combination of bourbon and Red Bull.
2 things that should never coexist and will probably take rust off of your car.
Yeah. So I found a recipe for what they called a gym bowl.
Did it have any reviews?
I don't know. I didn't search that far. I just saw someone said you mix it at a little, it's almost 50-50. It's like a 3-2 Red Bull to bourbon.
God, that's so gross.
And then they said a few drops of lime juice, which then I was like,
then of course you
well, they
dump
said
some lime
2 to
in.
3 drops, but this was 2 ounces of bourbon, 3 ounces of Red Bull. I knew I had put almost all of an 8-ounce can of Red Bull in and kind of eyeballed bourbon at the
So at this point,
correct ratio.
What was the recipe used for?
Validation that it was a good idea.
Without reviews, which, by the way,
Yes.
I lean very heavily on reviews. I'm not sure I would ever
Yeah, they're
buy
all fake.
anything.
I worked for a company.
Okay.
We bought a lot of bad reviews.
Well, the internet would not lie to me, so I trust all the reviews.
Of course you do. But I knew I was increasing the quantity, so I went from 2 to 3 drops of lime juice to like, I'm just going to eyeball it in like a tablespoon and I'm sure it'll be fine.
And what did you tell me it tasted like?
I managed to
Here, let me
hit
try
the
it.
exact ratio that it was like skunky like a Heineken.
Which is,
So then, of course, I had to correct that with more bourbon and then more Red Bull.
so it kind of smells just like Red Bull.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be as offensive as... That face is fantastic. But you don't like Red Bull. Red Bull is my lifeblood. It's my preference of energy drink. What do you think?
I feel like it tastes like if you were to like drink Red Bull and like 3 hours later throw up in your mouth a little bit.
The best part is it's like Red Bull
and stomach acid.
There's a hidden bourbon in there. It's fantastic. I don't know why I haven't tried this before. Because what goes better with alcohol than caffeine? Just ask Four Loko.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of that the other day. I was like, man, I'm having a rough day. I really just need something to take the edge off. But like, alcohol makes me tired. I will legitimately never drink alcohol before 8 o'clock. Like, I think mimosas are kind of silly. Like, sure, they taste good. Mm-hmm. But like, hold the champagne because I'm going to need a nap before noon. Like, not even worth it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, why don't they put caffeine in alcohol? And then I'm like, oh yeah, they tried that. And, like,
we tried
people
that
died
once.
or something.
People were blacking out. Had no idea what they were doing, where they were. It was good times. So back to the Sportster. So
I don't know if you've ever told the story of how you got that.
No, I think I'm going to loop this in though. So I have a 93 Sportster. Bought it off of Bren at Quality Handmade Motorcycles out of Boynton Beach, Florida.
Which you found on Instagram?
Yeah, I'd been following him for a while. And so he takes in work from other people. That's kind of his main gig. But every once in a while, he'd buy a bike and kind of redo it and then sell it. And he had one that I should have pulled the trigger on and I didn't. So when the next one came up, I was like, I dig the route he's going with this. It coincided with some work stress and some extra requested time off and a empty hole in the stable of the motorcycle space in the garage.
And what year was this? 22? 21?
No, it was last year.
Oh.
Yeah, 22.
I blacked out there for a second.
Yeah, well, because that was our first year at Vintage Days in Mid-Ohio.
Okay. What was that, before or after? Or you went right before?
So we went to Mid-Ohio, and then the following Tuesday I hopped on a plane and flew down to Boynton Beach. Well, technically Fort Lauderdale. Got off the plane. The helmet that was supposed to have been shipped down there did not arrive in the 2 days it was promised to be there. So then I had to get a different helmet. And then, rented a car, went and met up with Bren, picked up the bike, made a couple modifications just so I didn't have to deal with any law enforcement hassling on the way home, since it's the gatekeepers are going to say it's not a chopper because it still has rear suspension. It's choppery. Right?
But what did you have to add, like turn signals or something?
Yeah, well, I put mirrors on it and then kind of had a retrofit option for wireless turn signal kit off of a bicycle in my bag that I could be like, oh, I forgot to put them back on this morning in case I got pulled over. The big things were a mirror and a GPS speedometer so I could be somewhere in stone's throw of the speed limit because it had nothing.
Yeah, and it was like a bajillion degrees out because you went to Florida in July.
Yeah, it was the end of July. It was warm.
And so it's not like you're just going to put your phone on the handlebar like you've done before.
I did, but I didn't want to rely on that for speedometer and guidance.
So hot, like you're screaming.
And that was my worry, was like, if it gets hot to the point, between that and burning through battery, like if it just turns off and then I'm flying blind. But so the game plan was to fly down there, pick the bike up, ride it back to Ohio by the end of that same week for Fuel Cleveland. I made it like halfway-ish.
What happened?
The foam in that seat was so bad.
Well, that and like, I don't think, have you ever ridden in temperatures that high before?
The heat honestly didn't bother me.
But the humidity was bad.
It was rough, but I would have been fine.
You think so?
It was literally the seat that did me in.
Yeah.
It was a Cobra style seat, which is already thin, and it had old tired foam in it. And it was like, I don't know, 40 minutes-ish maybe, and it felt like you were just riding on the frame rails. And it was the first time I finally understood why like all these super awesome like custom bikes and choppers and stuff always have tiny tanks. It's because that way you have an excuse to stop and get fuel. Because I was literally going like gas station to gas station.
I remember you calling me like every hour being like, what do I do? I think
well,
I
that
need
wasn't
to make
until
it 50
like the
more miles.
That wasn't until like the second-ish day. Because the first day I was fine. I was just like, I'll be okay. The problem is I should have stopped that first day and gotten like an air seat pad. I didn't get it until like halfway-ish through the second day.
And your butt was already bruised.
Yeah, my sit bones were already toast at that point.
Is that what they're called?
Yep. So I made it to, I forget, Rock Gap, South Carolina, North Carolina, something like that. And rented a U-Haul van and loaded it up and drove the rest of the way home.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to take time to figure out those logistics too, to where you're like, it wasn't easy to find a van. I mean, you could find trucks if I remember correctly, but we were looking for
it was
something.
a little harder to find a van that wasn't like ridiculous in price. And then I remember asking the guy, I was like, do you care what I put in it? He's like, don't tell me what you're putting in it.
In regards to, motorcycle, I thought you meant gasoline.
Because like sometimes they're funny about like vehicles that have gasoline being inside of another vehicle. Like if you're rent a U-Haul, like they don't want you to put a bunch of gasoline in the back of it.
I guess that was nice of you to ask, but the don't ask, don't tell is kind of a good policy.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take my vehicle outside to go get things to not, wink, wink, secure that vehicle in the back of the van I'm renting. So I'll be right back.
Yeah, I guess you can't really hide like what you're putting in it. Like obviously
not when
you
I'm loading it in this parking lot, right? So yeah, the drive was fine, other than literally that seat just was so bad. Like I wasn't comfortable most of the way home, even in the van at that point.
Have you changed the seat already?
Yeah, it was the first thing I did when we got back.
I don't remember.
Or when I got back.
What'd you do with the seat? You hang it on your wall like a trophy?
Yeah, it's chilling in the garage. Maybe I'll tack it up on the wall at some point.
Yeah, it's not like you'll ever want to use it again, but it's
it looks
a nice piece of
it looks hella good on that bike.
Yeah.
It's just horrible to ride on.
It's a nice piece of art.
Yeah, I put a Prism Supply seat on it that's kind of similar-ish in design, but thicker in some places.
Yeah, when you're sitting on it, no one can see it.
Yeah. So I feel like I may be, I don't know, repeating what I was trying to do with the Vulcan, which is this kind of lightweight-ish, middleweight touring bike thing. So the thing that struck me as odd, this is a 93 Sportster. It has, I think, a 01 engine in it, from memory, with a chain conversion. And I always heard how awful Sportster 1200 for reference point, but I always heard how awful they were on the highway. That bike loves running down the interstate at about 70, 75. It could just cruise there all day. It is.
Its engine's just smooth.
Yeah, I think it's just the way the gear ratio is set up with the chain. It's perfectly happy at highway speed. So I want to make it a little more comfortable, want to go a little more choppery. So basically my game plan was increase the rear ride height, because it has like 10.5-inch shocks, some kind of lowering slammer style shock, which it can't get much closer to a hardtail without being a hardtail, other than, I guess, maybe putting rigid struts in place of where the shocks were, because there was not much suspension travel on those 10.5s. And then some sort of detachable saddlebags. And there's a specific fairing I have in mind I want to put on it. Saddlemen had shown off or leaked or whatever. It was like, I don't know, at least a year, maybe almost 2 years ago now, a mini FXRT fairing. So the FXRT was a Harley FXR touring. So it was kind of their middle size-ish bike with a small touring fairing on it. And Saddlemen's basically working on a miniature version of that I think would look really good on a Sportster. I want to do some Leather Pro bags, I think. I like the way they look. They're pretty easily detachable, but in the interest of comfort, and kind of the look I want to maintain, I knew I wanted to increase the rear ride height and go with a more comfortable solution. So I found out you can just kind of almost directly bolt up air shocks off of a Road King. So that was kind of the project.
We were doing.
Yep, that was the project. So those were takeoff, I don't know, dealer takeoff, like they were relatively unused. Road King shocks.
How is it mechanically sound, that bike? Did you get all of the other things figured out?
And
Wasn't
had some
it
intake
sputtering?
leaks. Yeah, it had an intake leak that I have chased down. There's some more I want to do to it this winter. I'm going to swap the exhaust. I had this exhaust that I thought was going to be the one I was going to stick with, but I don't know right now. And then I want to put 6-over fork tubes on it as well to bring the front up kind of in relation to bringing the rear of the bike up. But yeah, the air shocks, got them in. It's kind of like you don't know how they were treated between when they left the bike and you. And if they're inverted and not plugged correctly, the oil will come out of them. So the only way to make sure there's the correct amount of oil in it is to drain all the oil and then refill it.
To squirt it all over the garage is what you mean.
Yep, because the way you get it out is to kind of pressurize it up and then rapidly remove pressure. And the oil comes shooting out. And it went everywhere.
The garage is now well lubricated.
Yes. Well, at least the workbench and directly under the vise. But so those are done. Those are on-ish. I need to get some different hardware to get them mounted up better, but they're on for now.
Is this like the last big project on the bikes you have?
No, there's
Please
always
say
projects,
yes. Please
dear.
say yes.
Always
no, I
projects.
thought this was like the peak of the hill. Like, and once
No.
this one was done, it's like, let's just be boring. For like, what if we just didn't spend money on motorcycles for like 2 months?
I hope you would be bored of me if I actually
I
did
think we
that.
should try it and find out.
I don't think so. I don't want to chance it.
Amazon's gonna forget where we live.
Most like those shocks didn't come from Amazon.
Oh,
Very
no.
few random odd and end stuff comes from Amazon for the bikes.
I guess it's probably more like random technical like things.
It's
that you
just
order.
weird stuff that I can't get elsewhere. Don't want to drive like 3 hours to get because all of your like small random specialty shops are gone. I was just saying that the other day. I miss Radio Shack. We also had a store here in Akron called PhilCap Electronics. If I need like a resistor or a weird relay or capacitors, there's no like corner store to run down to anymore.
No.
So I have like a small stockpile of all those weird little electronic components.
Well, and
that I've been
like
building
things
up.
aren't made to be worked on. Like we had this discussion about
Yeah.
like your biggest bone to pick is like people don't want to work on stuff. And it's like, well, companies don't want people to work on stuff either. So it's kind of like
it's
a joint, like it
it's
makes
a
you wonder
cycle.
if like automotive places are gonna like it. We've noticed already with my X3 that things are not everything is like accessible with the newer vehicles. That makes you
like
wonder.
what?
Not necessarily with mine. I'm just saying you said something else about like, oh, they don't want you to work on them anymore. I don't remember what we were
Well,
talking
I think just
about,
in
but
general, but
it's just like one of those things that it's like, well,
it was actually
automotive shops gonna like slow down at the point of newer vehicles that they don't want you to work on in the next 20 years?
well, no, like third-party mechanic shops will have an increase in business because it's becoming there's a higher barrier to entry for your backyard shade tree mechanic, right? Because step one of working on a lot of braking systems is to communicate to the ABS module, right? Which means you need to have a scan tool of some sort. Some of them require higher end scan tools. Some require subscriptions. Oh, that's what it was. I had to buy a month of subscription to, I think, Mitchell to get the torque
manual or
spec
whatever it was.
for your alternator bolts because there's just not like a third-party Haynes or Chilton manual for your X3. BMW doesn't want to sell you a service manual because they want you to get a subscription to whatever their service portal is. I forget what it is. But it's just, they're anti-consumer moves in some ways, but part of it is there's not enough outcry because people aren't working on their own stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to work on my stuff. I just expect my stuff to work all the time for me.
But, and I don't know, maybe you feel differently about this because I know sometimes I don't know. I feel like you don't want me to work on stuff, not because you don't think I can do it, but because you don't want me to spend the time doing it. But
Well, your time is valuable too, and depending on what it is, it's like,
yeah, but when you look at dealer labor rates,
yeah, I get it. And like, obviously it's different since I've gotten this newer car. Like with the Honda, it wasn't so bad because I could get full synthetic oil change for like $50. And you're like, oh, well, I can buy the AMSOIL stuff for $45. And I'm like, yeah, but what's your time worth though, too?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know you could technically put like, let's say new tires or something. Like you could do a lot of that stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's like worth it for what, like make less than $100 or something like that. It's not, obviously, with this new car. I'm going to be
with
more
tires
flexible.
that it's not there. Like I'm going to pay someone to do tires.
Yeah, that was a bad example.
No, but I know what you mean. But
yeah,
like that alternator, for example,
it was easy. It didn't.
Yeah,
it took us like an hour to do it.
Yeah, it was one of the easiest alternators I think I've ever done.
Which is great because you said, like, obviously shop rates are high and everything else, and who knows if they'd have it in stock and all those sorts of things. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, but at the same time, like I said, I'm going to need to shift. Like I said, it's not that I don't want you to, it's that I value your time.
Yeah.
Same with, I think I gave you a timeline when our oven broke. You were like, all right, well, do you want me to fix this? And I said, you get, I remember it was like an hour. You get an hour.
It was like an hour. And after that, we're calling the home warranty.
Yeah, because the
funny part was
down payment on the home warranty or whatever it was is like $75, and then everything was covered. Well, Whether it even needed to be a new oven, everything is covered with the home warranty.
But what ended up happening with that? Do you remember?
There was multiple things wrong with it.
Well, no. It was within like 15 minutes. I troubleshotted that it was the one like control board.
Yeah.
And then we looked up the cost of the control board versus the cost of our deductible. But then, because you're calling home warranty, they're going to send a service tech out, and the last thing he wants to hear is that you've looked at it yourself, which I get.
Put the dust back on.
Yeah, so it was like put everything back and play dumb for him to come to the same conclusion and order the control board because it was cheaper to go that route than to order it ourselves.
And there was something else wrong with it too. There was like I don't remember what it was. Something else went out with it. It was just a bulb or something. It was something small, but it was multiple things. But like we said, like your time to me is worth at least like, let's say $50 an hour, like putting pretty
more than that, but
it is, but like with your own stuff, you know, you give a little. So it's kind of like, okay, like you put in a little extra time to figure out if you could do it. If not, I'm cutting you off. Like, especially something like an oven. I mean, our oven is not great. This is not like a $3,000 oven. This is like a $300 oven.
Yeah. Still plugging along though. Hasn't died for home warranty replace it yet.
Which sucks because it's ugly and I want a new one. So you have on here another trip?
So in my these grand schemes I cook up in my head, my thought process is if I get this done, Saddleman releases this fairing. Mm-hmm. And I haven't found a set of handlebars. I think I want to change out the handlebars on the bike. I really like the rabbit ears, but I wish they were a little wider. I don't know if I'm going to stay with those, try and find a wider rabbit ear, or go to some different style. But so in my head, my thought process is get the bike put together, bags, fairing, suspension work done, ride it down to Bren, have him paint matching flames on the fairing.
Does he know this yet?
No.
He probably doesn't listen. You might be safe.
I don't know if he's listening or not. If this comes to fruition, which I think it's going to, I'll give him some heads up. I'm not just going to show up at his door and be like, hey, man, I hope you didn't have anything scheduled for this week.
You listened to episode 8, right?
Yeah.
I name dropped you, and we had a very important conversation, one-sided conversation.
Yeah. But it's like matte black, white, kind of airbrushed-ish flames on there, and it's all like intentionally
you like chars it or something.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I love the way the paint looks on that bike, but to get the fairing to match it, and then if I haven't found an awesome handlebar solution, he does custom handlebars, so I might just have him make me a set.
Can we like go down in the wintertime or something? I don't want to go. Can I meet you down there?
No. I'd love for you to ride down with me.
I'd
get a big old fat king and queen seat on that thing, and now with the air shocks, I can increase the preload.
Oh my God, I don't even want to ride in a car to Florida. There's no way I want to ride on a bike.
It is.
Tickets are like $100.
It was so great though.
For who? You?
That ride was just fantastic.
What part of it? Like, obviously, not
multiple
the comfort.
Reasons. No, even with that factored in, it was still fantastic. If I, like, it literally just got to a point where I don't think I could physically handle it anymore. There was one stretch of it where I don't think we've cussed yet on here, so I'm going to try to keep it that way so far. My butt hurt so bad. I got a cramp in my hip and went to like stretch my leg out to try and get rid of it like it hurt. And then I realized that the cramp in my hip hurt so bad that I didn't feel my butt anymore. And I'm like, sweet, we're just going to keep this pain in my hip. And I'm going to be able to make the next 15 miles to the next fuel stop.
This fuel stop is sponsored by my leg cramp.
Yeah. But it was just great. And I think part of it
Well,
was just being away from work
I was
and like
gonna say.
responsibility and just being able to like wake up in the morning, walk down. Like I stayed in Equality in the one night, like roll out of bed, go get breakfast, hop on the bike. And like my responsibility that day was like to ride,
Yeah.
stop, get fuel, ride.
That's what I kind of wanted to understand better was like, you say it was great. Like I needed more information about like what about it was great. Cause like obviously there was obstacles. I mean,
Heats, wasn't super awesome. Like
no. I mean, that was probably would have been warm the whole way. You would have been so
quirks with any bike
exhausted.
you're not familiar with.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
riding
Like,
any bike, even a comfortable bike for the first time for 24 hours could hurt. It's not like a jab on that bike.
Well, I mean, I didn't go 24 hours straight.
Well, no,
That was
but
the reason
still,
why I didn't ride real late into the night. And
you got to pace yourself,
yeah.
and you just went with a high credit limit and just lived your best life.
yeah. But it was fantastic. But yeah, that's what's in the back of my head. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Saddleman needs to release the fairing. That's the
That's going to buy you some time, though, to do
everything
everything
hangs on
else.
No,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
So,
Well, do you want to actually get into some news?
I don't know. I'd rather talk about stuff I understand.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess we'll just skip all the news.
No, it's okay.
Funny enough, you actually compiled a lot of the news tonight because I was dealing with air shocks in the garage.
And you were cranky, so
I
I
was a little
figured if
cranky.
I make the list for you,
Yeah.
it'd give you that serotonin you were ever so looking for with
Dopamine.
dopamine.
Yeah.
Actually, I heard that I think the difference is very similar,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
I don't know. We're
I
not
think-
that kind of podcast.
No, I think one's short term, one's long term.
Probably.
And I don't know which one's which.
So, first story. We have more details about Kawasaki's hybrid bike. This had been teased kind of, and they said they were coming out with one. It's going to be called the Ninja 7. It is
But wait, how do you say the last part? HEV? H-E-V?
hybrid electric vehicle.
So are they really just going by 7, though?
Well, 2024 Kawasaki Ninja 7 hybrid electric vehicle. So
Com.
the reason they're calling it Ninja 7, well, because if you go off the displacement of the internal combustion engine portion, the name doesn't make sense. Because let me get this right. The displacement's around 450.
Says it offers a
451,
power of
parallel twin.
650 to 700 cc.
Yes. So when they add into the power of the electric motor, they're saying the power output is roughly equivalent to like a 650 to 700 cc motorcycle. So hence Ninja 7. It also, in theory, helps the consumer understand kind of where it slots into their lineup power-wise. Little under 60 horsepower, approximately 58.3. When you use the e-boost feature, it's going to ramp it up to about 68.5. It'll be interesting to see the final execution of this.
We don't even know if it's going to come to the States, do we?
Yeah.
How do you
Well,
know?
only in the sense of they plan on taking this everywhere. Like,
Because the last line
their
of the
straight
article,
electrics came to the state.
the last line of the article says UK and European dealerships in January of 24. It doesn't mention. Oh, well, I guess it depends on your source.
No one mentions anything. Kawasaki hasn't said anything super specific other than it's on the way and they're like making efforts. And
So
this
probably
article
TBD.
cites Kawasaki Motors Europe.
So maybe they'll announce it at that Vegas thing.
AIM Expo?
Yeah.
We'll probably hear more at EICMA here next month.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, it's moving along.
So weren't your concerns with this like there's got to be room for 2 engines?
Yeah, like it doesn't look as ridiculous as I
No,
was
it's
worried
good.
it was going to.
I wonder what it sounds like.
Like a 450.
Like a Prius?
No, it sounds like a Ninja 400-ish is what it's going to sound like because it has a 450cc engine. The interesting point.
Are those
To
whiny? Are those the whiny ones?
No, not necessarily whiny.
Like wee.
No. That sound, I guess, would be closest to a 2-stroke of some sort. But I think what you're aiming for is like a 4-cylinder sport bike, which also is not because it's a twin.
I guess the only time I've ever heard them was like when they drive past me really fast. So maybe that's different than riding
A
out.
400 normally isn't going to pass you real fast.
Oh, well, I wouldn't
400 is
know.
like the smallest Ninja they make.
I just mean a Ninja
Yeah.
in general. I don't know what like if I saw one on the street, I wouldn't know what the numbers were unless I could read a label.
Yeah.
But they did just have a passenger seat on the back, and there is a girl in the pictures.
Yeah.
Shout out to the lady on the moto.
But
I'd say it looks better. Like, I like the way it looks more than most Ninjas. It looks a little more upright.
well, yeah, it's going to be a little more standard-ish, like the Ninja 650 is, because this isn't like a high-performance Ninja, right? So you have like the
This is like an actual.
CX6R, I don't even know how many R's, whatever, and the 636, which were like basically race replica bikes.
So it'd be a good intro bike for someone.
The 650 and then the 7 are not that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe
Power wise.
it's not crazy ridiculous power. It's not irresponsible power, but it's not your typical beginner bike, not like a Ninja 400. Just because you're also adding in the power of the electric motor behind it. What'll be interesting to me is how they execute the transition between the two power sources, and if you're going to be able to like pick one, because it'd be cool to me if it can get up to 45-ish. My commute to work's really short, like 3 miles. If I could do that on all battery, that'd be pretty sweet.
They don't really talk
Right,
about
then-
like, does the battery enhance the miles per hour like a Prius, or does it like you use
Miles
one
per
engine
hour
at
or
a
miles
time?
per gallon?
Miles per gallon.
In theory, it
How
would.
does it actually integrate?
Well, that's what I'm kind of saying. They haven't really released all of that. They're saying they're also using it as a power multiplier.
It says
So it's
on
going to increase the power, the speed.
the one article, 14-liter tank, which means it can carry enough fuel for up to 217 miles of riding. Now, liters are not doing my American brain any justice.
Well, good thing Google exists. While you're
All
looking
right.
that up,
Yes.
the cool thing is because it has an electric motor, it has walk mode, which basically lets you creep the bike forward and also backwards on the electric motor.
All right. Ooh, 3.69 gallons. That's a big tank.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, I mean the Vulcan, like for reference, is like 5 something.
So, if they say, oh man, did I lose my stat of what? How many gallons did I say? 214? 217.
217.
3.69. Oh my god, there's no calculator on my iPad.
Good thing you have a phone.
All right. 217 divided by 3.69. 58.8 miles per gallon.
Yeah, it's not bad.
How is that compared? Not as good as a scooter, because scooters get like 100, don't they?
Some of them. Yeah, I mean, you pull up the Kawasaki website and see what they're quoting the current
What's an
Ninja
average?
650 at. But yeah, the styling I like. It, in my opinion, leans a little closer to like the Ninja H2 styling. Kind of more so than like the ZX6R. The current 650 has a little bit of that. Let's see. Current 650, do we have miles fuel economy on here? Nothing like radio silence.
I'm sorry. I'm reading. I'm actually looking like if you look around, you can find some specs more than others. So I'm like going through this one article that you shared.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to have a little bit more than the first one we saw.
So Motorcycle News had a review of the Ninja 650. This was a long-term test. Said track riding at its worst returned about a smidge over 39 miles per gallon. Let's see, it says return to healthy economy that begins in the late 50s at least. So fuel-y looks like people were reporting around kind of low 50s. So not crazy better than the current 650.
So it looks like the regular engine, the combustion engine, charges the battery.
Well, I mean,
And then turns the engine off when it comes to a stop. Ooh, that would drive me nuts. I don't not like that. They can probably turn that off, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone will figure it out. The auto stop start stuff, yeah, if you're not a fan, is not the bike for you.
I just call that stalling
Yeah.
at an intersection. We saw some guy, I don't even know what bike it was, of course. It was on the way back from Mapleside last week when we talked about that. When you were riding separate, I was with your mom and some guy, I mean, it wasn't a scrappy looking bike. Poor guy stalled at the intersection. Luckily, it started right back up. I was just like,
Yeah.
I feel you, bro.
Every once in a while, you're just not on
Also
your
not-
clutch game.
Scarabeo, though, it stalled like 10 times on the way back from our 100-mile trip. So
Yeah.
a little bit of empathy now.
Took that out today for a rip up and down the road.
Our freshly paved road.
It is. Yeah.
Are
This
you
is the first time I took it off the lift after doing the fuel pump replacement. I didn't feel like it had lost much pep, but it obviously had. Turns out like dumping raw unmetered fuel directly into the intake probably isn't great for performance. That thing is zippy, man.
When you're on the Royal Alloy between like the neighbors getting a new roof, like I could barely hear you on the road. Like
Yeah.
straight up, it was
Scooters
so
are quiet. Yeah.
Like I said, no bumps, no rocks, like
Yeah.
freshly
Fresh
paved
asphalt.
road. Yeah,
Yep.
wild.
Okay. Next story.
Have we talked about this before? Is this like a follow-up at all?
Kinda, yeah. So we've had some photo leaks, we've had some spec leaks. The Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 or 452, we're still not 100% sure, has an official launch date, has some more pictures released. We're looking at November 7th. Now that's going to be for India. Right now, I just looked up, we finally have a release date in the States for the Super Meteor 650, which has been out in India. We're going to be about 10 months behind.
Oh, so almost a full year. So like next September-ish
Well,
would be...
August, September-ish. So hopefully it's faster than that. The bike is very intriguing.
And apparently has had success. They mean the Himalayan in general.
Yeah.
Has success on every continent, including Antarctica. So if anyone is planning a trip to Antarctica, we have the bike for you.
Yeah. I actually looked to see. Was pretty sure there was probably other motorcycles that had been on the continent of Antarctica. The one article I found was BMW. I believe it was the F850 GS, 750 GS, one of the smaller GS, or I guess middle GS now, had been on Antarctica. I'm sure there was others. I just didn't see anything in my quick perusing. But
is there a summer down there? Like, would there be like a better time,
Yeah.
in which fuel like would freeze, or maybe it's not even as cold as I'm thinking it would be in my head.
man, I don't know what the freeze point in gasoline is. It's pretty low.
Okay.
It's hard to freeze gasoline. Diesel, it's an issue.
But then, like, who'd want to be moving while on a bike that's already that cold? I guess you're probably in like astronaut gear to begin with.
No, you can see the footage from when they took the Himalayans down there. Like he was riding with the visor open in his helmet.
I wonder if that's like would his
It was
breath
snowy,
cause
but
like frost on the inside of his helmet?
yeah, I mean that's probably half the reason. But he had just had like sunglasses on. It's like how I ride in the winter up here.
I wonder
It
if
was
he
like
did
his face was instant frostbite because he opened the visor.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like the sole reason they went down and be like, okay, it's done. He rode.
Yeah, they rode to the South Pole. It was like a big marketing thing.
Yeah, I was
They
gonna
had a
say
huge
marketing.
expedition.
Say you did
Yep.
it. Hurry up, pack up, come back, same day.
Yep. But we have an official launch date for the new Himalayan. The first one has rolled off the production line. I have mixed feelings on the pictures I've seen of it, especially some of the new marketing ones.
What are your feelings? What are they mixed
So
about?
if you look at a lot of the pictures, I'm hoping part of it is just the angles because of the way the new engine sits in it. And it I can't really quite tell. Let me look here. Basically, where the down tube of the old frame was much more vertical. And now that kind of line from the steering stem to call it the kind of front lower portion of the bike is more angled and less upright. It loses a bit of the retro styling nature to me. The other thing I had read, and I haven't validated this, so take this with a grain of salt. They did not use the same designer for the last one, they decided to do this design in-house. There's some things that are the same, and some of it's kind of radical departure. I did not like the look of the tank initially, but after seeing some more photos of it and seeing some video of it, I'm starting to like the tank design more because it kind of flares out more in the front. KLR-esque vaguely. I hope the kind of leading edge of the bike, quote unquote, frame area is more vertical than it looks in some of the pictures.
There's not very many pictures out there yet.
No. Not good ones that aren't all kind of at the same kind of front 3/4 angle.
Yeah, they've all used a lot of the same one.
Well, it's because the ones, Royal Enfield wants to let out. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me skeptical. But it'll probably grow on you as you see more.
So this is the single thing that I'm most excited about was they weren't idiots and actually made a fantastic decision. If you've never seen Itchy Boots on YouTube, her actual name is Noraly. She has been riding around the world for, I don't know, years now, it feels like. I think it was pre-pandemic, maybe 2017, 2018. Mm-hmm. And she started her adventures on a Himalayan. She started in India and rode that bike, I believe, all the way back to the Netherlands eventually.
Wow, that's...
her first Himalayan was named Basanti.
Oh, they came with names.
Yep, she's named all of her personal bikes thus far.
That's so fun. You should get into that.
Where Royal Enfield messed up is when she did her second adventure and her third adventure and everyone since then.
What?
They haven't put her on a bike.
Oh, they mean they haven't sponsored her?
Yeah, she to Royal Enfield is what Long Way Round was to BMW.
Oh, really? So she really...
She was the only one putting out that kind of massive content of I'm showing you. Royal Enfield's yeah, you can take this thing up in the Himalayas. That's why we named it a Himalayan. It's built to be abused and rough and whatever. And she's like, okay, cool, I'm going to ride this thing around the world. And she was the only one that was really documenting it at that time.
Well, in her geographical area was their target market. She started in India. That is their people there. Yep. That is their direct market. They get everything first. So you'd think it's not like she's coming to the States, and riding it when you can't get it or anything like that. That's pretty wild.
And her subsequent ones weren't in the same area of the world. But nonetheless, she's... I don't know, she had a bunch of inertia at that point, basically.
I hope the brands
I don't know why they didn't just keep propelling it. But
brands
at least
realize this a little bit,
well, they apparently did to some extent.
How they do and don't treat their riders who have great influence on the internet can do so much benefit or pain to their perceived brand, regardless of what, people just want to feel good about what they're buying. And sometimes that's all you have is it's okay, well, I'll spend a little more because I trust the company. Even if, I'm not 100% in love with the product, but I think my relationship with it will grow when I learn to trust it. That's kind of how my relationship with cars is. And I know that's probably hard for maybe most men to understand. And I can't speak...
What a sexist comment.
But I just feel you have so much intention with what you buy. And I'm and everyone after I got my new car was do you love it? Do you love it? I'm I have to earn trust with my vehicles. I don't just love anything. I don't know if it's just because I don't know them well enough to just go into it and be everything's going to be good.
Yeah.
But you want a positive relationship with the reputation of your vehicle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of responsibility that comes with the reputation of the vehicle that you buy, and it's a big investment, especially when people aren't always having fleets of them, not everyone has 5 motorcycles. Some people just want that one perfect one that's going to fit. And you identify with that. That's so deep. And to be seeing how these brands have treated these influencers, whether it be her, who's I'm not as familiar with, as Ewan and stuff like that from what we've watched. I even said it right this time.
Mostly, yeah.
If I say it fast enough, maybe no one will catch me. But seeing how those brands treat those riders as like, oh, well, if they're going to treat a potential celebrity, basically internet celebrity within their niche market, whether or not they're actual celebrities, like what? How are they going to treat me as like some fly on the wall who just bought a product from, a resale or a used bike or something like that? Like if they don't treat the people that are obviously representing them, how are they going to treat their one-off first-time rider who bought a used bike?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember exactly how it all went down. I guess there's potential that she has avoided them specifically for every other subsequent adventure she's went on. I forget how many bikes she's had personally at this point. She's also borrowed some bikes from other people. But for them to have not gone out of their way and being like, pick a number. Mm-hmm. Whatever number you say, we're going to make happen to make sure that every other time you ride something around the world, it's on a Royal Enfield.
Like it's one person to sponsor, it's not like you're sponsoring a whole family. It's one person.
When her subsequent adventures were not on Royal Enfields, so we'll talk more about this later. We finished up Long Way Up. Mm-hmm. We've started Long Way Round. I don't remember if I've ever watched it all the way through. I've started it multiple times. We have started it multiple times. We're going to finish it this time.
I have commitment issues.
Their miss, though, was probably as big as KTM's miss. I hope whoever decided to not put Ewan and Charlie on KTMs for a Long Way Round was fired.
Yeah.
Like strung up outside the building, fired.
They have their own list of regrets. I don't know if we need to rub it in at this point.
It needs to be rubbed in, and everyone needs to be reminded that KTM did not think Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman with a support team. Now, granted, their support team is not as quite aggressive as some support teams are for people who are doing long distance rides. KTM did not think they could complete that trip. It would not put them on KTMs.
I wonder what they actually said, though. Like, was that, I think it was Charlie who answered the phone or something like...
No, I think David or Russ did, and then Ewan called them back.
Okay. So I wonder what
met with
they actually said, because you would hope that even if the guys couldn't do it, you could prove that your bikes could. And like the terminology in which you would choose to say that, like, oh, we're doubting like the human ability, but we like, as long as you believe in your bikes, honestly, it shouldn't even matter, like technically what the rider could or couldn't do. And like, that to me is like, you're not doubting the rider, you're doubting your bike, because let's say they gave up. Let's say they really did fail.
Yeah.
But their bike was like still fully functional. They would have covered that, like.
Yeah. Or KTM could have at least done some type of rebuttal, if it was like, they gave up. Our bikes obviously were capable of it.
It's still a good story, even if they wouldn't have, like, seeing the stuff that they've been through. Sometimes even if you go through some crazy stuff, like, that doesn't mean you're not victorious to an extent, even if you don't accomplish, like, the one big obvious goal.
Yeah. I wonder if sales numbers are available for board. Maybe we'll go back and, like, watch sales numbers of, like, BMW increase after that series come out versus KTM. Someone messed up.
I wonder how long it would take, though. That's something like that is like a long-term singe. It's not just like a one-time dip. I feel like...
Yeah, I mean, KTM's doing pretty decent now, but I think it was probably immediately after that. I mean, because that series was kind of really responsible for GS's taking off, especially in the American market. But,
yeah, it was very... It seemed like, obviously, their influence is going to be stronger in the markets they're recognized.
Yeah, but... Royal Enfield choosing to bring in Noraly, put her on the new Himalayan before its release. Fantastic decision on their part. I watched almost all of her video earlier today. Just got to kind of see her interaction with it. She was on a pre-production unit, or it may have been final, but they wouldn't tell her it was final at that point. Didn't give her all the specs, or at least didn't give her everything she could talk about. She's like, I don't know how much power it makes, but it feels like about double. She's right. It's about double, which is kind of impressive. I don't know. I hope I see this and I'm excited about it as I was the original one. At least I never pulled the trigger on the original one. The one thing that kills me, though, is they're going to a single gauge. Do you remember the dash on the original one?
Not at all.
It was like very, I don't know. Not necessarily fighter pilot-esque, but like airplane-esque. Like you had multiple gauges that had specific purposes.
Like
and they're all
physical
analog.
circles is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
like you had a big speedometer. You had like a fuel gauge. You had multiple specific gauges on the dash. And it felt very utilitarian. Like, I'm going to take this thing through the Himalayas or to Antarctica. And like, I want physical stuff that can be fixed and is more likely to work. And on this one, they're like, how about a single gauge that does everything? And it's a TFT LCD display.
Okay, so if that shorts out, everything's gone.
Everything's gone.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, okay, what's the longevity of this bike in reality? LCDs don't last forever.
I guess.
There's now a shelf life on that bike.
How many bikes, like, do you think a lot of them have LCD or LED screens?
Well, so they're LCD, liquid crystal display. When they're LED, that just means that it's an LCD with LED backlighting. Because original LCDs were fluorescent backlighting. These are TFT, thin film transistor displays, so it's a different type of backlighting. So they'll last longer than a fluorescent or an LED backlit LCD, but they don't last forever because liquid crystal itself has a shelf life. Like you can go back and see like electronics, like some of the early MacBooks or iBooks. Like the screens are literally deteriorating just from age, not necessarily usage. Like the liquid crystal is decaying within the screen.
So does it just dim?
Well, no, it just will become like non-functional because the liquid crystal is like dying. It's either hardening or basically making its way through the membrane, draining out of the screen eventually, or it's eating the membrane containing it. So granted, we won't know for 30 plus, 30-ish years for sure how long these screens are going to last, but on the surface, I can tell you can go find a 1970-something Honda.
Yeah.
And the gauges, if they don't work, they're fixable.
And that's 50 years old.
Right? You can go find Harleys from the 30s with functional gauges. And if they don't work, you can fix them. There's likely not going to be anyone making replacement TFT LCD displays for this bike.
Well, not yet.
30
anyways.
plus years from now.
You don't think? I guess it's hard to know. 30 years from now, maybe they'll have like a swap out.
Yeah, some type of aftermarket solution. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't love it. I don't think it looks as good as the original dash gauge cluster did. So we'll see. At some point, we'll go look at one once they've made it stateside, and I'll either finally buy one or I'll go buy an old one.
There you go.
So,
because you got to have one.
Well, because I really do like the Himalayan.
I remember when you considered those. I think we saw them at the IX Center, and you like really liked it. I think it's like the utilitarian.
And I love the way it sits.
It looks like an adventure.
My only concern was I wanted it to have more power, and they're solving that. So.
And then you lost all the things you liked.
Yep.
Well, maybe it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. Moto Morini, who is coming to the U.S., has announced a 650 cc cruiser. It's a sharp looking bike.
There's no passenger seat on that.
No, I'm sure they'll sell it to you for some extra money. There are pegs there, so maybe they just expect you to sit on the fender. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to charge you more for a passenger seat. Trellis-ish style frame. Kind of draws on a little bit of like the Honda Rebels, Kawasaki Interceptor-ish. But a lot of traditional kind of cruiser lines overall, if that makes sense. Link will be in the show notes. When you can look at it. Sharp looking bike. Excited to see Moto Morini.
I've never heard of this company before.
So they are one of multiple Italian companies whose nameplates have basically been purchased or are being utilized one way or another for typically Chinese manufacturers, like Benelli. Mm-hmm. Benelli's Italian name, made by a Chinese company.
Oh.
So Moto Morini's in that same realm.
I went on their website. I don't see any like obvious dealers. There's an about
No, I don't even think
section.
it's like all fully fleshed out yet in the U.S. I just know they're coming to the U.S.
Oh, so they're not even necessarily here yet.
They're supposed to be here this year. I just don't know if there's anyone officially set up full-blown, like, rolling yet this year. I haven't looked Cycle Trader to see if there's any dealer with Moto Marinis listed yet.
They do have an Italian contact number.
Yeah.
In case
Yes,
you
they do.
needed that, as well as a Chinese one.
But, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good-looking bike. See where the pricing falls, because, it's going to be kind of that Rebel 500 Vulcan S power-ish, since it's a 650 twin, like everything seems to be these days. I hope at some point we see manufacturers experiment with different engine configurations and we get away from parallel twins and everything. But for now, I get it.
Interesting logo.
Yeah.
It's like a seagull wearing sunglasses.
I suppose that is one way to interpret it.
Maybe it's an eagle.
Yeah.
But it founded.
And I think it's just an eye. I don't think it's wearing sunglasses.
I think it's wearing sunglasses. He's got an eye patch and a line from a side profile.
Maybe we'll have to make some Moto Marini parody logo shirts.
The pirate bird.
Yeah. Make it like an obvious seagull wearing sunglasses. Yeah.
And no one would get it. They'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Happier than a seagull with a French fry.
There you go. What's next? The Honda Highness or Hness.
I like the name.
So it is the CB350 that we apparently we will never get in the United States.
That's a bummer because that's like,
Yep.
that was like a classic in the 70s. That was a staple.
Yes.
And I only know that because I know two people with them. And that to me is an anomaly.
Yep.
Because you have...
That is one of the project bikes.
You have essence of one.
Yep.
And then our neighbor has like the exact same one stashed away in her garage that she hasn't offered us.
Yep.
That I've told her. I've hinted. Bake her cookies.
But so they're bringing out a legacy edition. It was unveiled in India. It is retro-y.
So why can you not just import a bike? Okay, so it looks like it's affordable. It
The
says
EPA.
$25.95 US dollars. So $3,000. The EPA won't let you bring it in.
Well, between the EPA and the National Highway Traffic Safety Association and the Department of Transportation, you've got to wait for it to be 25 years old before you can import it.
Really?
Unless the manufacturer goes through all the testing hoops to certify it for the U.S. market.
That's silly.
Because otherwise, we'd have a whole bunch of these in the States right now. These people would have been importing them. I don't know why Honda doesn't want to bring it here. They brought the Navi here.
Why do they even allow the US dollar conversion if we can't have it?
Well, because they just want to show you
how
what you
affordable
can't
it
have.
is.
Yeah, how affordable it would be. Because this would be about a $2,600 bike.
I'd buy
and
one.
it's sharp. They
Maybe.
put like chrome-ish rear shocks on it.
It's got
brown
like a
seats.
retro vibe.
Yeah.
In fact, it has like
It's styled like the old CB350s.
the one picture, if you scroll like halfway down, I don't know if that's the same bike.
Yeah.
With the little box seat
blue
on
and
the
red
back,
one?
is that supposed to be a passenger seat or is that like cargo? It would have to be a passenger seat, right?
Yeah.
So
it's passenger
interesting to like simplify to almost a triangle for the rider, driver, and then a
that's what-
square for the passenger.
That's what most are if you look at them kind of simplified to their basic
That's
shape.
what I'm saying. It's interesting
Yeah.
seeing it like simplified down to like the geometry basics of it.
But yet another bike we can't have in the U.S.
Why
At
do
least
you-
not yet.
I mean, I
But
don't even really like motorcycles that much. I'm just intrigued by all of the politics overseas.
But
What?
I had a great tie-in. We're not going to get the CB350 in the U.S., but sounds like we're going to get the Harley X500.
Honda or Harley?
Harley.
I
So-
know, but like, that's
I
not
know.
the same.
Not the same. But this was a bike we were not supposed to get in the U.S. I don't know for sure that this is real. Motorcycle.com reporting that they have found a U.S. specific owner's manual published by Harley Davidson for the X500 model. Now, if you remember, they made both the X350 and the X500. Harley originally said these will never come to the U.S. Then it was walked back a little bit and said, well, actually, we're going to bring the 350 to the U.S., but it's only going to be for the Harley training programs.
Training for what?
Like you can go take a MSF course at a Harley dealership.
Oh, yeah, I looked into one of those.
Yep. So whether these are actually going to be for a consumer sale, don't know 100% yet.
They just let you learn on them and then they take them away.
Well, that was literally the plan for the X350, which was kind of hilarious to me. We're going to put you on this really tiny, almost perfect starter bike
And then
that
not
we
make
won't
it
sell to
available.
you in the U.S. But here, you can
That
go
would
buy
be
our cheapest bike, which is a $14,000 975cc liquid-cooled V-twin.
Especially as a female,
Yeah.
it's like, who wouldn't want like some easy transition? Like, let me buy the same bike I've learned on. Because those courses, like,
You should call Harley. Let them know.
as a female, I'm offended. I'll pull the as a female card.
Well, as a female, I
Tell me
feel
what
like
to
your
say.
decisions aren't logical.
Well, I'll be like, oh, well, you're right. I was going to buy a Harley, and that's illogical. I'll go look at the Hondas now.
Well, no, I meant from like their decision isn't logical in the sense of like put you on a bike that they won't sell you.
Oh, like it's logical because it's illogical?
No.
Oh.
The logical thing would be to sell you the 350,
Uh-huh.
and they're not.
Right.
Their decisions are not logical.
Like a female.
No.
I thought that's what you said.
Oh boy. No.
That's okay. I'm
saying
not offended.
You can go to them and say, as a female, I don't understand why you won't sell me this tiny bike.
Should I cry
That's
on
perfect.
cue?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Work it in.
Okay. I mean, like I said, feel free to be like low-key sexist toward me. I can handle it.
Or not.
No, but I
Um,
mean, as a female, I mean, there are some stereotypes that are like.
I love that
legitimized.
you've said that like 4 times in the past 2 minutes.
I'm validating myself.
Yeah. If this makes it to the US, it'll be interesting. It looks better to me than the Street 500 did. That thing was weird.
I like the back, like how I guess I don't
Rear
even know
fender?
what things are called. Yeah, how it goes
Yeah.
out straight. Like I like
Yep.
that line they put out in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of got that Dynabro fender clearance where there's a gap between the rear tire and the rear fender.
It's like the floating license plate just does something for me.
Yeah, first thing I do is rip that thing off.
Oh.
But 47 horsepower out of 500 parallel twin, 456 pounds wet, fuel economy around 49 miles per gallon. Valve inspections every 15,500 miles.
What is that, like every 5 years?
Depends on how much you ride. But it is significantly more than the rest of the Harleys. Because
More often or more miles?
more often, because a regular Harley has hydraulic lifters, so you don't have valve adjustments.
Mm.
This is like the rest of the motorcycle world, where you have to adjust valves, or at least make sure they're not out of adjustment. So yeah, we'll see if we get that.
I wonder if I could.
Did you look at the next story?
I didn't. Is it a good one?
It is. What's the title?
Okay, hold on. Let's see here. A scooter?
What kind of scooter?
A super scooter?
Super scooter.
Not your regular scooter. Oh, good lord. What is this?
Oh, it's awesome
It's
is what
shiny.
it is.
What is it like? What are these seats? Oh my
Okay.
god. I'm glad I didn't look at this in advance.
So, John Piper, ex-Formula One
What
engineer
is this?
from Williams, has put together a company, Piper Moto. They've released drawings, renders of the J1, Piper Moto J1. It is the scooter of my dreams, is what it is.
Is this real or is this some like
Not yet, but boy, do I hope it is, and I hope it comes to the U.S. They have crammed. First off, the rear of this thing lifts up, like hinges forward, like a cab over semi. It's fantastic.
so that actually comes up? That wasn't just like some sort of AI to like reveal underneath.
AI.
I don't know what to call
I don't
it.
know.
Like
It
rendering
appears that
to like
that's-
show that that's what's underneath.
I don't know, but that's what they seem to be implying. That because it's lifted up.
Wow.
If you were trying to show what was underneath,
gotta-
you just do a cutaway.
Work under the hood.
Yeah. So what they've crammed in this thing is a 690cc KTM single cylinder, claims 67 horsepower. Thing's going to has a top speed of 120 miles an hour, weigh about 352 wet, has a perfect 50-50 weight distribution due to the mid-mounted engine, 0 to 60 time of 4 seconds flat.
Can you
in a
promise
wonderfully
me
teal scooter with 2 seats on it.
that
We'll
you-
get places so fast.
Can you promise me you will never go, like, what was it, 150 miles per hour
What,
with me?
120 top speed.
Oh, my God.
Full tuck. But this thing is, the styling's actually
I'd
pretty good,
actually
too.
die.
I really like what they're doing. It's very retro futuristic in
This
ways.
guy was Formula One involved? Like, did that have
Yeah,
anything to do
ex-Formula
with-
One engineer.
Ooh, the top is pretty
Well, that
big.
probably has something to do with the ridiculous performance numbers in the scooter, hence why he's calling it a super scooter. Guess what it has?
I love that that's the best name they came up with.
It has analog gauges.
I was just
it doesn't
looking
have.
I was
yeah.
literally looking at that, was going to bring it up.
Yeah.
All it has is a digital speedometer.
No.
What is
Analog
that?
speedometer,
Wait,
analog tachometer.
What is that red number in the middle?
That I believe is your gear indicator.
Okay. Did not expect that. The headlight looks a lot bigger from above than it did from the other shots. But yeah, I did notice that it's got the, what are we calling those? Aviation analog
yeah.
meter things.
Yeah, it appears to be a gear indicator.
Fancy.
They didn't really address how shifting occurs.
These
if at
seats are
all,
killing me.
But
They look like a tandem bicycle seats. They're
Yeah.
just straight up bicycle seats. And I wonder how that would work sitting on them. It may be more comfortable because you're not just sitting it on like
Listen.
a flat pad. First of all, it at least like has some shape to it. Like sitting on something square is not doing anyone any favors.
and here's the other thing that's fantastic:
Like it
17-inch wheels.
That's big, right?
That's all.
Because
That's
12-inch is a regular scooter.
yes, that's bigger than the Scarabeo at
Are you
16.
proud of me for knowing what a
I
regular
am
scooter?
very proud.
I think
Very
I read
proud.
that
You've
in an
come a
article
long way in 7.5 episodes.
I almost feel like I've betrayed myself. I had such a good reputation of being like your naive wife, lady
Mhm.
friend.
now
now
at
I'm
vintage days, you're going to
converting.
be expected to know things.
God, that's gonna suck because my retention is
Yeah.
like 0.
Here we go. 6-speed gearbox.
Okay, I
let's
don't know what
see.
that means. Is that more than normal?
Well, most scooters don't have
Gearboxes.
transmissions. They're CVTs now, so you don't shift gears. This you
Oh,
will.
this is a manual scooter.
So it says though,
Well, heck.
unlike most twist and go scooters, you can choose to shift it manually if you like. However, it's not done by the usual hand clutch foot shifter and either. Instead, it's fitted with an electronic shifter that's activated with a finger switch on the handlebars. So it sounds like manual push button or kind of automatically controlled. Prototype's been built. We'll see where the pricing ends up. If this thing makes it to market, it's going to be ridiculously expensive. I hope to at least see one in my lifetime and maybe get to ride one at least once. But it is really, it's the kind of thing that everyone talks about they wish existed. And I hope this is actually made.
So I went on their website because I'm like,
Mhm.
I wonder if they're hiring, right? Because that's what one does.
Yeah.
And I scroll.
Of course.
You'll have to check out the footer of their website.
Yeah.
It's literally like at the end of the movie, what it's called credits. They credit the people in
It's acknowledgments.
acknowledgments. It's
Mhm.
very nice. But I also no regular footer about careers. So like, is this company legit?
They're really new.
Okay.
But that's only at the bottom because it's a one-page website.
Okay. I have hope. And it looks like up in the top right, they have England and what is red, white, and blue?
Blue, white, and red.
Oh, yes.
French.
Okay.
That's literally a difference between how you refer
So-
to America versus France.
I know, but I'm
Red, white, and
American,
blue
so I
versus
just
blue,
like
white, and red.
process things the wrong way. So what happens if this is only available? Are we going to France?
I don't believe it'll be French only.
So are we going to Europe?
But, I mean, maybe. Do I get to bring it home?
That's not for me to choose. Might
Yeah.
be cheaper to buy it over there. It'd be interesting to look at like what the conversion rate would be. If you
Yeah.
can't get it,
Buy it, park it in a garage for 25 years.
sneak it over on a cruise ship.
Yeah, there we go.
Would you go on a cruise ship if it meant you could bring a motorcycle back?
A super scooter?
Yeah.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, Matthew is completely against cruises. So this is speaking
only-
bounds.
Yeah, I mean,
Ever since the
won't get
onion
into-
sandwiches.
yes. Basically that. I don't trust people to do their jobs. I don't trust them to do it for what little they're paid.
And being lost at
And
sea is not on your
And
bucket
people
list.
are really bad at logistics. Another scooter, Sim, has the ADX 125. Are you familiar with the Honda ADV 150, now the ADV 160? Okay,
If you only understood what
my
my mind did when you said numbers to me. I'm an artist, so maybe if you show me a picture, I'll understand.
Pull up the Honda
Okay.
website. ADV 160 is what it is now.
160.
So it's the only Honda ADV we get in the US. We don't get the 350. We don't get the 750. We don't get any of the fun stuff in the US, especially from Honda, it seems.
Why do we live here? Okay, so what am I supposed to do between the two? Are these related? Are these
So I think they're very
siblings?
similar, both in kind of form and function. So the ADX 125 is kind of adventure scooter like the ADV 150/160, but from Sim instead of Honda, which if you're not familiar with Sim, they are, if not the largest, one of the largest scooter manufacturers in the world. So it's not like you're buying some like no-name scooter. Arguably, as good, maybe better than a Honda, depending on where you are in the world as far as parts availability. But hopefully going to come in at a better price point than the Honda ADV 150/160. Like I said, I think they're all 160s now this year.
My server stopped responding. I can't see any of the pictures anymore.
That's okay. Just trust me that it's very similar.
I do trust
to the ADX 125. But they didn't have any pricing info yet, so we don't know where it's going to fall in relation to the Honda ADV.
Cool looking, very geometric. And the passenger seat is interesting. I think it looks very small.
Well, it's a 125.
I would like to file a formal complaint to make passenger seats bigger.
On everything?
Yes, please. 20% bigger.
Okay.
For my American butt.
How do you file that with everyone?
Just reply all.
Oh, okay. Here, for reference, Honda ADV 160.
Oh, okay. Well, this other one seems to have a lot more lines, but I see where you're coming from. It's got some.
If you look at the
that
front,
seat almost looks more. Passenger seat almost looks more comfortable.
There's a lot of angularity in the front.
Yeah, I can see
same overall
related,
vibe
but
going
not
on.
identical twins.
Yeah, ADV 160 US MSRP is $4,499. So if Sim comes in under that, it'll probably be a winner in some ways. If they come in at that or over that, I don't know. People will probably just buy a Honda. Next story is one of the ones you put on the list. You put a couple of these on there, but you specifically brought this one up. So lay it on me.
It appears as though Segway is releasing an electric scooter, which I did not even know that Segway made scooters. So this is a few layers of news to me. And it kind of appealed to me because it gave me the simplistic ruckus kind of vibe of the stock image in which they chose. It's very simple, very basic, kind of like Honda Elite vibe.
I can get more on board with the Elite comparison.
Well, I think it's maybe just that grab bar in the back that gave me ruckus. And maybe like that seat, like the seat, grab bar, under seat situation. Yeah. That was...
I'd say vaguely Elite, a little bit of Dio in there. Who made the Spree? Honda? Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of a Spree-ish.
And like there was
smoothed over front end.
There was a lot of references in the articles about the handlebars being really low and this being for a small statured person. So
you're getting one.
The average... And I'm pretty average. Like, I'm like 5'5.5", which is pretty average. So they even said, like, specifically targeting small people. So I don't even know if I'm small. I mean, I'm small compared to a man, but I'm not small compared to a woman. So it depends on...
The handlebars don't look that low in the picture. Look at how high they are in relation to the seat.
If you scroll down to the guy riding through the blurry city, he's kind of hunched over, and he doesn't... I mean, it's not really easy to say how tall he is. I mean, he does not look huge. But
they don't look lower than typical scooter.
So we're just supposed to like
taller than some because
like a banana.
It looks like it would clear my legs.
Well, the front looks like you'd be fine, but they just said like the way that the position of that.
Yeah, he needs to scoot forward or backwards on that seat.
Like
but
I said,
sure,
he's just sitting like a shrimp.
Reviews are subjective. You can feel however you want.
That's true. That's a valid point. They just mentioned that a lot, so it kind of stuck with me.
But this is electric.
Oh yes. Electric. I don't remember any of the stats. They didn't stick with me.
So, 10 kilowatt peak power. Top speed, I believe, was 67.9 miles an hour. They call out a 0 to 30 time of 3 seconds for whatever that's worth. But you're looking at an electric scooter that can do a little better than 65. Realistically, 60 to 65 is kind of probably its max comfort area. Segway's claiming it's going to do 80 miles. MCN could not get close to that. They said they managed a maximum of 67 miles. They only got that by sticking exclusively to eco mode and riding at or below 30 miles an hour, though.
It's funny that they put miles per hour, but then they have British pounds for the currency.
Yeah.
So they converted.
And MCN's a British publication.
But they do miles per hour instead of kilometers?
Dear, where did we get the imperial system from?
Don't quiz me on this right now. But anyways, the price conversion...
They do inches, pounds, miles per hour, all that. They just don't use US dollars.
It'd be $5,000-ish American.
Yeah.
US dollars.
So, intriguing. Another scooter that's going to be in that kind of useful to me electric scooter category.
And it looks like, I mean, the one picture, I don't remember what all of the words said. It looks like you can fit a helmet under the seat, which is pretty cool. That says a lot for that space.
Yeah, they're sticking a full-size helmet under the seat in that picture, so decent under-seat storage, which is pretty good, especially out of an electric scooter, because a lot of time the batteries take up a bunch of that space, and you don't have as much under-seat storage. So we'll see if it makes it to the U.S. shores. In the meantime, hopefully people overseas appreciate.
So you said Segway already has some scooters. Do we know of any local dealers? Like, is that something you've ever seen in real life?
Well, they're not really scooters per se. They're technically like more mopeds.
I thought mopeds needed pedals.
Some of them, I believe, have pedals. But that's more like an Ohio thing. Ohio's moped laws are kind of weird.
Crazy.
Let's see. They have the Segway e-moped C80 and the Segway e-scooter E110A. Wait, you took a picture of one and sent it to me at Costco.
Oh, is that was a Segway?
Yeah.
Costco.
Yeah, wasn't that Costco? You sent me that picture?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, wasn't it yellow?
That is a possibility. God, I don't remember when the last time I went to Costco.
Yeah, I believe it was the Segway e-moped C80 you sent me. It has physical pedals and totally unusable location, but they're there, so they technically meet the pedal requirement for a lot of states that have pedal requirements on mopeds.
I'll have to see if I can find that.
Probably do a location search in your images.
I know it was August 31st. I found something. So,
but yes, they have other scooters already. This just kind of rounds out their electric scooter lineup with something a little more high-speed roadworthy, less in-town moped / low-speed-ish 50cc equivalent scooter. They're calling this one a 125 equivalent. I'd say that's pretty fair. A little better than some 125s.
I don't know if it's going to be worth finding.
Okay,
no, I searched the date and it didn't come up.
Yep.
So probably not worth waiting for.
So next electric story. Honda is bringing a prototype electric motocross bike at round 8 of the All Japan Motocross Championship.
I wonder how that performance would compare to a normal one. If
pretty
it's
good.
Equivalent?
So Stark Motors, Stark Varg, is a all electric motocross / dirt bike. Alta Motors was originally working on that before they kind of got absorbed into BRP. So electric dirt bikes, especially competition, kind of makes sense. The funny thing to me, though, is so now Honda's involved. This is exactly where my mind went whenever I read this story. So when Honda decided to do 4-stroke motocross bikes, that was kind of the nail in the coffin of 2-stroke motocross. Not immediately, but pretty rapidly after that, everyone was like, well, if Honda's doing 4-stroke, we got to do 4-stroke. And then everyone was doing 4-stroke. So here's Honda starting to do electric. So if Honda goes, we're doing electric motocross bikes, the rest of them are going to follow. And then Triumph, who just put out their first motocross bike, is going to be like, well, crap, now we have to switch to electric after we just spent all this time, energy, and money developing a gas 4-stroke motocross bike to enter the motocross industry.
There'll still be a market for it. It'll take people a while to convert, I think.
It was just a funny thought in my head. So we'll see how that goes.
It's still considered just a prototype, it looks like. So
yes, for now.
No deposits are made.
Yeah. Cycle World had an interesting one. Honda, another patent, basically for using multiple electric motors to change the handling of a bike. Basically how they're discussing it in the patent, using 2 electric motors mounted longitudinally in the frame with drive shafts running to the rear tires. So one on the left side of the bike, one on the right side of the bike.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be able to use both of them when the bike's traveling in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to lean into the turn, they would switch to giving most of the power to the one on the inside edge of the turn, which would help the bike lean over. And then as you exit the turn, we would switch to the opposite and give more of the power to the one on the outside edge of the bike, which would help stand the bike back up because the motors would be counter-rotating. I forgot that part. So, intriguing idea. The CX500, because it is a longitudinally mounted V-twin and a lot of longitudinally mounted engines, you'll get a bit of, not directly torque steer, we'll call it like torque lean, where if you're in a corner and you accelerate or decelerate, basically spin the engine up or down, the kind of rotation of the engine will change the characteristics of how the bike is leaning.
Sure.
They're using that to their advantage, but by using 2 counter-rotating electric motors, you can kind of use it in both directions.
What is the image they've used on this article?
Talking about the one up at the top.
Yeah, is that an existing...
No, that was a concept bike they did.
Got some crazy lights on that bad
Yeah,
boy.
the Honda Riding Assist E concept from 2017.
Oh, that's...
Kind of a cool bike.
It doesn't look
The
horrible.
headlight's a little weird. Change out the light and sell that thing to me.
I feel like... I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to be... I feel like everyone should be kind of open-minded to the lights. I think... Why not see if you can improve them? You know?
Yep.
Get crazy.
But the overall kind of styling of that is like dirt bike met street bike in my mind.
Yeah,
right?
I could definitely see the dirt bike aspect. It's kind of what I thought when I first saw it.
Yep. Where are we going from there?
Another Honda story.
The E-clutch.
Mm-hmm.
Another one you found.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't know how to drive clutch, ironically.
Yeah, so E-clutch, Honda's really leaning into kind of a bit what, in a different way. If you remember from last week, we discussed Harley-Davidson and one of their strategies under the last CEO was more roads to Harley-Davidson, and it was all about trying to figure out ways to bring more riders into the brand. And that started with electric bicycles and low displacement bikes and all kinds of stuff, right? Honda's going at it from a different aspect. They go, yeah, people don't know how to drive manual transmissions anymore. They don't understand clutches.
Truth.
So where they started with was with the DCT, and now with the E-clutch. The E-clutch is basically designed to be able to be they didn't say directly like retrofit onto existing bikes, but very easy for them to incorporate into existing engine designs. So they should be able to get this up and running pretty quick.
Okay, so that's something we could buy and like put on anything?
They're not saying that yet.
Well, they don't want to say that. They want you to put it on a Honda. They don't want to say anything.
They want to put it on a Honda.
Right.
They want you to be able to buy like a Rebel 300 with an E-clutch. They're not saying if you have a Rebel 300, we'll put an E-clutch on it yet.
So they're just putting them on new bikes as like maybe an option.
Well, that's what it sounds like so far. Mm-hmm. We'll see where it goes from here. But basically, electronically controlled clutch for both like initial starting your motion, coming to stop, shifting. Basically, everything can be handled by the E-clutch mechanism. You can also still manually activate the clutch.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably good. You want some sort of backup,
Well, and I think it's kind of best of both worlds for the people who feel weird about the DCT system. Because DCT, you can manually shift the gears, but there's no clutch. You're just pressing a button up or down, right? You can run it fully automatic, or you can do that. This is more leans towards the manual end of the spectrum, where the clutch is still there. If you want to have a fully manual experience, go for it. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling lazy, don't use the clutch. Yeah.
Gives you a scooter vibe.
Yep, gives you a scooter vibe.
It's kind of cool. Kind of a cool like Segway that you could maybe get the same experience out of the same, or two different experiences out of the same bike.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Ducati and Lamborghini, they are working together on basically vehicle-to-vehicle communications. Which
I learned a lot from this article because I didn't even know they were both under the Audi brand.
Yep.
Like
Volkswagen Audi group.
And Volkswagen is Audi?
Yeah.
Like, what is my
Audi
world?
To Volkswagen is like Lexus to Toyota.
Okay, that still doesn't mean a lot to me.
Accurate
but I am very removed from the automotive industry. Okay. And there was a lot of mind-blowing facts with that. But it seems like they're trying to get their vehicles, all of them, to communicate with each other. Like, the first time I read this article, I was kind of not realizing, like, it's kind of a network. So, like, the bikes under the brands would be communicating with, obviously, starting at the higher end, but hopefully trickling down to those. So there must be some sort of
it's not just going to be within
tracking
their brand
device or something.
This is something that's been discussed of, like, where vehicles are going to get eventually, where they'll be able to intercommunicate going down the highway. So your car will go be like, hey, I'm in lane 2. I'm going to switch to lane 1. And the insert vehicle, motorcycle, truck, whatever, in lane 1 can be like, don't do that. I'm here. And then they can adjust speed accordingly and make that lane shift.
Which is better than just having like motion sensors and, cars guessing. Because obviously there's still a lot of room for error. I don't know if those lane assist things, do they track motorcycles? That sort of thing. So it seems like this, that they've shown, like if you're coming up over a hill and there's a 4-way stop and you can't see, it will tell you if there's like a motorcycle sitting there. Or if you're in a motorcycle and you're going over the hill, it'll tell you don't pass because there's a car coming the other way. Yeah. But it seems like this is a network within that brand that they're hoping to extend to others that, like I said, it'd be interesting, to be devil's advocate. Like, okay, well, how much of that's like would play a part if you got in an accident? How much information would they have access to place blame? Like what that would do for insurance.
A lot of vehicles already have basically black boxes that they can use.
Do they?
Yeah, most commercial drivers, like, so if you're driving tractor trailer, it's likely. I mean, it's likely if it's. I don't know how many years they've had them, but they basically have a recording device. So they can go in and extract throttle input, brake input data.
Of your vehicle, though, not of who knows what they could track. Like, oh, you saw that there was a motorcycle up ahead and we told you not to accelerate. Like, how much control do you have over that? And if you accelerated anyways and you hit that person, does that change who's responsible for that accident?
Well, still the person who hit the bike.
Well, that was just an example of like, does it alter?
Yeah, I mean,
accidents and how they're recorded.
If the human's still controlling the vehicle, it's the human's fault, no matter what they do with that data they're provided. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. There's a threshold that's got to be crossed for it to be supremely useful because you have to have well beyond a majority realistically, but at least a majority of the vehicles on the road have to be communicating to each other.
That'd take a long time.
Which is why we're seeing everyone working on these like sensors first, because if we can try and map the road going on around us and understand our proximity to other objects and vehicles and people, that's the stopgap until everything can communicate to each other. Because guess what? Even when we're at like 90% adoption, there's still going to be the dude with his like 68 Mustang that wants to take it out for a weekend cruise.
Yeah. But maybe that'll make them think about things differently. Like, oh, I never would have thought, like, oh, there might be a car up here, if I'm going to go around this bike or, whatever the circumstance is, maybe it'll at least create an awareness, kind of training people to rethink how they're driving.
The two things I'll say is, when I've heard these networks discussed before, there's always discussion of like a retrofit option to basically get current cars. They may not be able to interpret the data around them, but they can at least transpond out and say, hey, I'm here, right? So the cars that can use the data can understand where vehicles are. Even if the, quote unquote, dumb vehicle can't use that data, it can say, hey, I'm here. The other thing I'll say is I thoroughly enjoy driving/riding. I think most motorcyclists enjoy the act of riding their bikes and may or may not enjoy driving their car, truck, SUV, whatever. When you get into kind of the end game of why build out vehicle-to-vehicle communications, it kind of all centers around self-driving vehicles.
Taking the art out of it a little bit.
Well, because you're trying to give the computer of the vehicle enough information to understand what's going on around it so it can make decisions, right? So while the technology is exciting from the accident avoidance potentials, it is less exciting to me because it can also, mean, I don't know. I hope in our lifetime we won't see the point where like you just can't drive a vehicle. I'm not going to be a fearmonger like that, but I think we will see certain areas.
We've already given the option not to.
Non-self-driving area, like large metropolitan areas, downtown. You may not be able to enter in a human-driven vehicle, right? Because the congestion's so bad, the only way to make it functional would be for every vehicle to be completely automated.
Interesting.
So they can maximize the efficiency of the lanes they have. So I don't know. But intriguing, they're working on it. Next one. Another one you put on here.
I was on a roll.
Cardo with 509, who I don't think I'd ever heard of. It's releasing a helmet with integrated Cardo.
So does this happen or not happen? Like, honestly, it's hard for me because I Googled motorcycle news, as one does, and pulled things from the results that I don't have context to what they actually mean. So is Cardo not integrated into any other helmets yet? Is this like...
Well, you would ask me that, and I'm not sure. I know there's helmets with built-in Sena units and other other Bluetooth communicators. This may be the first Cardo integrated helmet. I'm not sure, to be honest. If you love the 509 helmet, I guess fantastic, because now you have an option to not have to put a Bluetooth communicator on. I'm personally never going to make a helmet choice based on it having an integrated Bluetooth communicator.
Because you don't have to, though.
Well, I'm going to pick my helmet first, and then I'll retrofit a Bluetooth device onto it.
Well,
I'm not going to pick a helmet because it has Bluetooth.
You do have a little more comfort than the average person probably does with tech, though, too. That if someone sees that there's a convenience there, it's like, oh, well, I don't have to think about it.
But I'm not picking my safety equipment based on convenience features.
Well, you'd hope that there's an overlap there, though, too.
Yeah. I guess. But I'm picking my safety equipment
based on safety.
Based on safety. Right?
I understand, but you would hope that good safety gear also comes with modern conveniences.
Yeah, any of it can. I can put a Cardo on anything. But, I don't know. I guess decent looking helmet. Very sporty looking in the picture they attached to this press release here. It's the 509 Mach V or Mach 5 Commander. Yeah, it's got Cardo, does their DMC mesh, and connect you and up to 14 users. If you're in the market for a helmet, I don't know when it's being released yet, but if you want one with Cardo built in and don't want to buy a separate Cardo unit, you now at least have one choice in case there aren't already other ones that I'm unaware of. The next one you found was interesting.
It's true. Apparently, BMW has a...
Nope, you're skipping one.
Am I? Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Spoiler alert. Next one has a little bit of Bimmer in it.
Yeah.
So I found... I don't know if this is really news. This is not news.
I clicked on the Reddit link.
It's fun banter. So there's... I'll describe to you. Oh, there's 3 images.
So
okay, the other 2 are like parking violation. So there's a bike. And it's parked perpendicular to the curb.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what bike it is. It doesn't matter anything. The story takes place in Australia. It
was posted to Reddit.
Yes, it was in Reddit, and apparently there's this huge debate about it. On the opposite side of the bike, there's a car that appears to be...
Opposite side of the street.
Sorry. Well, and of the bike. Along the street, there's a car parallel parked. Obviously, it's in Australia, so it's reversed of what it would be. So, But it makes sense. It's just a car parallel parked, and on the other side of the street, there's a bike perpendicular parked to the curb, and it's a huge debate about whether this is correct or incorrectly parked.
Yeah, and most of it comes down to, it's correct. Is it courteous?
Seems risky to me.
Well, the problem is he's on an incline. So when you're on an incline, I mean, I don't know. My preference is to try to not park on an incline of any sort. It's not a severe incline, but it's a bit of an incline. Basically, he parked it with the kickstand uphill. So the bike is leaning uphill.
It just seems like more area for someone, like less area for someone to go around it.
Sure.
Last minute.
Here's the theory that was proposed, though. If you go to like the third picture in the article, or if you go to the original Reddit post, it is not uncommon to see bikes parked like that in parallel parking spots. The problem is there was probably a car behind his bike that he parked next to, and that car left. So now his bike's just chilling there, and someone decided to park on the other side of the street.
And there's no parking spots, though. Like you say parallel parking spots, like...
No,
but
they're
it's
just parking against the curb.
It's on an unmarked street. There is what appears to be double yellow, but again, I don't know if in Australia that means anything. It's hard to tell what this road does at the end of the picture. Is it a cul-de-sac?
It turns into like a little side street or something.
Yeah. So like there isn't necessarily lines marked on the street that say this is like designated parking in general. Like it's kind of like assumed back street parking.
Yeah. Basically, everyone's confirmed it's technically illegal the way it's parked. It just may not be the most courteous thing or most widely accepted method of parking in that situation.
Yeah, I mean,
which I agree with.
I mean, you don't know if that car that's parked across the street from it was even there.
Well,
because
they may not be illegally parked if there's like a no parking on that side of the street sign, which then...
Yeah, and really, who knows? But it does look kind of tricky to try to wiggle between the two, but it could just be an unfortunate circumstance in which they both ended up. Like, who knows?
But this is the latest...
this is Reddit.
What was the dress? Blue versus... White and blue versus... Gold and black or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever the dress one was from years ago. It's the motorcycle version of the dress.
That one exhausts me. I am proud to say I'd never gotten an argument or a real life discussion over that dress. So life goes on.
Tell me what news is happening at BMW Motorrad. What has occurred?
So I creeped on this guy on LinkedIn, as one does. So apparently there's a Marcus Flash, who's now the new head of BMW Motorrad. And I don't know how to differentiate this. So I'm going to show you this.
Okay.
He was apparently the CEO of BMW Group. Do you know how BMW Group relates to actual BMW?
No, not in the slightest.
It seems like it's splitting hair because he went from CEO to like less than.
Vice President, Vehicle Line. Oh, for the 8 series from January 17 to September of 18. Then CEO for BMW Group from October 18 to November 21st. Then Senior Vice President of Midsize, Luxury Class, and Rolls-Royce. I thought he did something within Motorrad. They just poached him from the car side?
I don't know. I mean, not everyone updates their LinkedIn things completely accurately, but...
My favorite thing was, did you notice the name of the gentleman he's replacing?
No, I did not. His first
name also is Marcus.
Oh, well, that's like... So I knew someone growing up that married... Like, his first wife passed away from an unfortunate health circumstance. Mm-hmm. He always joked that he could never have another wife with a different name. Mm-hmm. He found his second wife. She had the same name, but it was spelt differently. So he never had to worry about getting them confused.
Oh, well.
Isn't that perfect?
Easy enough, yeah. Yeah, Marcus Flash will be replacing... Marcus Schramm.
I mean, I don't know if that's like how big of news that is, but it's interesting to see that shift. I'm sure it happens way more than we realize, especially when you have these large motorized groups, companies broken down so, like I said, splitting hairs that it's tough to keep for an average civilian to keep up with that.
He is currently BMW's product line director and is responsible for the development and design of all BMW vehicles in the middle and luxury classes, as well as the Rolls-Royce brand. Well, that's worrisome. Go look into any of the BMW groups, forums, subreddits online and ask the average BMW like fan what they think about modern BMW design in the cars. It is very polarizing.
Really?
Most big-time BMW people do not like the new design language.
Oh, are they old?
Which is funny. No.
Oh.
No.
I like what I've seen of the new ones.
The
I
big
think
nostrils.
Oh, is that what they call them?
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of people are referring them to because they're doing
squares?
like big ridge lines on the hood to match
I like
snoots.
the squares. Yeah. I like the sharp lines.
Of course you do.
But that's also like, that's just par for the course right now.
Yeah, but go look at like an old E46 and then look at the new ones and tell me it's as good.
It's the same with any line though. Like you look at the new RAV4s as compared to the, I mean, I don't know, old Toyotas.
I wouldn't use RAV4 as an example. But
I'm just saying that's
sure.
That's the only one I'm familiar with. They're all coming with like the straight lines are back.
I don't know. All I'm going to say is if people are upset with the way that this GS looks, if we're bringing over the radical design language change that's occurred on the car side of that company, people are not going to be happy with the next GS at all.
No.
Because it's going to be real different.
I like, from what I've seen, I like the new style, but I'm also...
There's elements I like about it.
Very new to experiencing it. So to me, it's just like new and exciting. It's not necessarily coming from any previous opinions.
Yeah. Next story.
Well, are we going to, I don't know how much time we want to spend on our journey of considering buying a new bike for passengers. Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah. You want to talk about it or you want to wait for next week?
We can touch on it a little bit. Maybe we'll give like a teaser. So like, just as a general sense,
yep.
I feel like there's unlimited amounts of knowledge out there for riders to get from other riders.
Yes.
I'm feeling like there's minimal coverage for riders who need to consider a passenger. So we, in our current fleet, we shall call it, obviously you are a 30-year-old male, and I've never been really that involved, like, with your hobby. That is kind of like, and it's kind of like naturally like, well, you don't really have a bike for riders, so I'm not really like needed to be invested, but
bike
also like
passengers.
Yeah, sorry. But also like I've never really been invested enough for you to consider me, but now we're kind of like at a crossroads. Okay, so like if we were to consider the Aprilia is the first very comfortable passenger option we've owned. Yes, that we've had.
Yeah.
And so that's one of 5, 6. How many non-passenger friendly? I think there's 5 others.
Yeah.
So we've got one that's actually comfortable for me to sit on.
No, in the Honda.
Yeah, the Honda's good.
Yeah.
So
my issue with the Honda is it's 1981 braking technology. It's not my favorite bike to take you out on, but
so it's unfortunate that's like what's comfortable for the passenger princess is not necessarily ideal for the
safety.
Educated driver. Yeah. So we're at this like crossroad, and I don't know how long this journey is going to take, and I think it's worth following along to see. I mean, it could be years. I don't know what our investment is because we've talked about like me getting like I have my temps now. Haven't really driven on the road. Really don't have a huge desire to. But I think as a general safety precaution, I should get my license just in case something was to ever happen to you. We're out somewhere and for any reason you get another cramp in your leg and I need to take over. But as a general backup safety, if we want to go cross country or something like that, whether or not I ever...
What? Oh my goodness.
I've never been opposed.
I'm so excited.
I've never been opposed to traveling. I don't know if I want to do it fully on a bike. I'd like to have... I know, dear. I'd like to have somewhere warm to sleep and soft to sleep. Take the dogs, that sort of deal. Put the bike on the back. I don't want bed bugs. There's a lot to be determined, but we want to start thinking about and talking about the consideration of a passenger when you're looking at different bikes. So I don't know how we're going to approach it, but it's kind of interesting. Like I am very non-educated, like very distant. Like I don't even know what I want, like someone who's
Yeah.
very removed from having options. So like looking at different things, and obviously like you're the person who knows the specs, who's like going to look at a bike for the body, and I'm going to look at it for like that one seat and that one experience. So
Yeah.
it's very different. But if you really genuinely want your partner to ride with you, it matters. Like it kind of sucks. It's kind of superficial, I guess, is like what I would consider my knowledge. Is like very superficial. It's very like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? It's not about how it functions as much. So looking at these different bikes, what do we want to consider? What would we consider? What is our budget even going to allow? Even a superficial budget. Like I don't plan on buying a bike within the next 6 months. Sorry. Not sorry. But like hypothetically, like
we'll just rock the Scarabeo.
yeah, well, we can go into being like, okay, what would we feel comfortable with? Like, let's say
Yeah.
10 grand, for example. Like, I really don't know that I'm nearly as invested in this to be like, let's spend more than we spend on our cars. Like, ultimately, I'd like to keep our motorcycle budget less than cars because you have multiple.
Yeah, I mean, I
We buy used cars, so
I don't see myself spending more on a motorcycle than a car right now.
mhm.
But I
That's
guess
just-
anything's possible.
That's the general gist. So, kind of opening up this conversation as we've low-key talked about it and entertained the different ideas, even just taking that approach as we look at these new bikes coming out. Like, what does this mean for a passenger? Like, it's a hard balance. I understand it's a privilege to even consider, like, do you have multiple bikes? Like, that's not
Yeah.
a situation that everyone's able to be into, and your life can change fast. If you're a single person, and you buy a bike, and 2 years later you have a partner who wants to ride with you, what does that adjustment mean? Obviously, it's very different. Like, there's never going to be a right answer, but I think it's kind of fun to talk about it and negotiate some of these things and consider it. And if anyone has like questions or ideas or things that should be talked about that aren't, I just feel like that's something that no one really talks about is
Yeah.
prioritizing your passenger.
Well, and I think the other thing that maybe we can talk about is modifications that could be done to improve passenger comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Because now that you are slowly becoming more open to the idea of riding with me,
Very slowly.
there were so many times that I was doing things with the Vulcan, and I'm like, well, I was going to do A, but B would be better if you're going to come with me. And you're like, I'm not coming with you. Don't make decisions based on me coming with you. So I'm like, okay.
And
Right.
you say that with snark, but like the honesty is probably appreciated too. Like if you want to make modifications to your bike that are going to make you happy,
I know, but I would have been happy with a different seat, especially if I meant you were coming with me.
I know. And see, to me, someone who's very like wishy-washy on the weather and whether or not the vibes are right before
The
I hop.
vibes.
I gotta check the moon state before we hop on the bike.
Yeah.
But I don't want the obligation of feeling like you made a decision for me.
Sure, but I wasn't making a decision for you.
No, but you're gonna be like, well, there is a little bit of like, okay, well, I did with you in mind,
Yeah.
but now you never ride with me, and I'd rather be hurtfully honest. Like I
Sure,
just
but-
don't want to ride. Like I don't thoroughly enjoy it. I'm still trying to acclimate to the speed of naked air. Like
Naked air.
There's
That's fantastic.
the human to wheel ratio is 1-to-1, and I'm just not feeling the vibes.
The human to wheel ratio is 1-to-1. That's also this is a good quotable episode here. Yeah, I mean, I just mean like we like the Vulcan, for example. Like we could put a big 2-up touring seat on it. We could put a more padded backrest on it. I could probably find you armrests if you really wanted it.
See, and there's comments like that, like if you really wanted it, and then it's like, oh, but if you bought them and like,
well, but what I'm saying is I don't know what you want because you don't know what you want. Like the only thing we've
It's true.
identified so far that you like
is the back seat and
well,
the
I was
O-crap
gonna
bars.
say some kind of handle
I like the
because
handles.
you don't like touching me.
Oh, stop it. That's not it. I don't want to depend on a squishy mobile human to hold me down if there's danger. If we hit a pothole and I fly off, you're going with me.
Okay,
I want to be able to like,
Okay.
it's a pothole.
ride
and
me like a meat sled.
I know we're going up and down, and I want to be able to hold onto the down. I don't want the up to go with me. So like, it's hard. Plus, like, it takes strength to hold on to a person. Like, there are movements, you know, like there are motions in which are not as normal as me. Like gripping the bottom of a seat is very comfortable for me. And people have very different body types, body styles, body strengths.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty strong person and we're both pretty average size. That's not everyone's case. Not everyone can get their hands around the person in front of them, depending on how the bike is structured. We've even noticed that with a difference within the Vulcan compared to the Scarabeo with the height of the passenger seat.
Yeah,
that makes a huge difference in wind resistance for my helmet. Like that could give someone a neck ache.
Not just that, but like what I've noticed of like, I prefer, and one of the things I'll probably look at is just improving the braking system on the Honda to some extent. I don't think it'll be our primary ride, just because I don't want to put a bajillion miles on that thing, but I feel more comfortable with you on the back because the seat is more flat.
Mm-hmm.
Your weight is at the same level as my weight, so I can anticipate what you're going to do to the attitude of the bike better. The Vulcan, the passenger seat is not ridiculously higher, but significantly higher.
Mm-hmm.
You are seated significantly higher than me on that bike compared to like the Honda.
I'd say
so everything you do is amplified.
Yeah.
Because you're further from the center of gravity of the bike.
Yeah. I mean, and these are things that I don't know if people are talking about it, but since I am, like just still kind of on the fence about how I feel about my relationship with these bikes, I think that's probably relatable. With other women that are maybe like, I'm not quite sure what I want, but like I need to feel safer. I don't know
Doesn't
why.
have to just be women.
No, partners in general. Like
anyone want to ride on the back.
Yep, anyone. But also just being like, it just doesn't feel right to me. And that's kind of how I feel right now. Like until I found what worked, I didn't know why things weren't working. So you have to try things, but maybe someone saying this helped me, it at least instigates that conversation and enabling passengers to vocalize like, I just don't feel safe and I don't understand why. And just being able to say like, oh, well, I don't have anything stable to hold on to. Like I just need, even if it's psychological, even if it's a placebo effect, like, yeah, if we're getting hit by a car, it doesn't matter if I have those old crap bars to hold on to because like I'm smushed.
Yeah.
But if it gives me the perception.
But at least I'll have those handles in my cold, dead hands.
But like, if it gives you the perception of feeling better, like that's all you need for someone to want to ride with you. Yeah. And if that's changing your relationship with the bike, with your passenger, like, is that worth it? Like, yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, so next week after, semi-continuously into the future until we make a decision, you're going to kind of put together some ideas for us to talk through of bikes, what intrigues you about the passenger situation, what doesn't? Is that kind of the game plan? Yeah,
maybe we can find some bikes that are coming out that are like passenger first impressions of kind of like, would I sit on that? You know, like a lot of these bikes are new. You don't get to test drive them. So we could look at new bikes and maybe give them like a perceived passenger rating. Because obviously nothing's going to be validated unless we were to sit on them. And I don't know how I feel.
Even then, just sitting on the bike isn't necessarily the same as riding it.
Absolutely. So sponsor us.
Yeah.
But just a general, just kind of like an idea, a different take. Like I said, new bikes coming out. Like I'm assuming people just buy new bikes, right? Without ever sitting on them. Like,
yeah.
Kind of blows my mind.
Maybe not. You'll probably sit on them, but
not necessarily moving.
A lot of times you won't test drive it.
That's a lot of trust. That's a lot of faith.
Yeah. You know who lets you test ride a lot of bikes?
I'm assuming you're going to say Harley.
Yeah.
And then they don't sell them to you.
Oh, no.
They train you on them.
They'll sell it to you. They'll get you. Don't worry. They'll finance you. They'll finance you real good.
Don't get me wrong. I understand why companies don't want to let people like test drive bikes. But also it's very hard. I mean, it's still a price commitment. It's
kind of ridiculous in the grand scheme of it, because imagine going into a car dealership and they're like, yeah, you can't test drive any of these vehicles.
Well, you can't test drive any of the new ones. That was like a legit problem during the pandemic. Like you had to pre-order.
Different. Well, no, but I mean, we could still, when we were looking for your car, we could test drive. Basically, we couldn't necessarily test drive the trim or options we wanted.
You couldn't test drive new ones, but you could test drive old ones.
we test drove brand new Seltoses.
As long as they didn't have someone who had already had dibs on them.
Well,
if
yeah,
they were
they're not
someone
going to
else's
let you
car-
test drive a sold car.
I guess that's true. That sounds silly now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, it is what it is, but it's a journey.
I just appreciate sitting here thinking about how you're talking about wanting to remain on the bike. And then Noko Moto's episode that dropped earlier today, they were discussing airbags underneath seats to ejecto-ceto you over a car in a collision.
Oh, I'm not ready to have that conversation. I really just don't even know where that goes from here.
Ejecto-ceto, cuz.
I think we need ejection seats in family vehicles.
For people who don't want to be in the vehicle anymore?
100%. Like right under that moonroof.
Yeah.
Just send them out with a I mean, any questionable passengers should automatically get a parachute and then you just shoot them up. Well, I mean, they're going to land safely. My goal is not to hurt people, just to get rid of them.
Solid. Did you get the new stickers on the site?
I did.
Yeah.
As promised, they were up I think they were up late Friday night, but
The Ooh Shiny.
it's killer.
It's so good.
I'm going to have to order more. Maybe a little. We might change the sizing a little bit.
So we did it on holographic foil.
Because it's shiny.
It's so good.
We didn't order enough.
We did not. We need to order more.
So if you see that they're in stock, you better hurry.
Yep. And then, what was the other one? We had the
got
free Harley shirt spray painted on the side of the van one.
Candy van type
like
situation.
a free candy van kind of deal, but free Harley shirts.
We've got it's One Kick I Swear, which is...
One Kick I Swear from one of the Noko brothers.
Yes.
You think it was Swiggy.
Not Swiggy, the other one.
Oh, you think it was Pete.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no.
No, you think it was Swiggy.
I really don't know the difference between the two.
It was. It's somewhere in a note somewhere, but...
So I've messaged them to message us. We'll see if they do. If not, we'll have their sticker on stock.
And then, what was the last one? Ooh Shiny, van, One Kick I Swear.
Oh my God, why is this happening? The scootering is not a crime.
Oh, scootering is not a crime, yeah. Pun off of the motorcycling is not a crime, which is my favorite sticker I have on the rascal of all bikes.
And it's a little bigger, so it can easily be stuck on the back of an actual scooter and be read at slow speed.
Yep.
But legible. See, if they don't have fun paper, they're so easily forgettable. We're going to do more with
holographic
fun paper.
all the things.
Yeah, it's so special. It's so different. And honestly, again, it goes back to having things for people that aren't just those who ride motorcycles. Like Ooh Shiny is so perfect for anyone with a short attention span, which is 98% of us.
Yes. Yep. So check them out on the Etsy. We'll see what other ideas we come up with in the meantime. Maybe some funny passenger related one.
Passenger Princess is happening. Probably another holographic. I haven't. I know it's going to be probably a quick deal. It's just going to be a beautiful font that's shiny and just wonderful. Maybe a crown. I feel like passenger princesses deserve crowns.
Yeah.
If you got any other ideas that you're not going to hold us legally liable to, send them to us.
Yep. podcast@motohop.co.
There we go.
Well, I think we're going to call that it for episode 8.
I think you're going to fall asleep.
Here's my favorite thing. Did you notice what time it is?
I did, and I chose to ignore it.
We are just killing it. Almost 2 hours this episode.
Crushed it.
That's what you get for episode 8.
Late night caffeine for the win.
So, thanks for joining us, for making it 8 episodes in so far. See you next week.
Bye.